Howdy y'all, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be applying our Ash review to another game that we recently completed on the channel. Admittedly, this game probably doesn't even need this review, and regardless of how you feel about the show itself, there's absolutely no surprise that this game swept at the Game Awards. I'm not even going to try and beat around the bush or leave anyone in suspense. This game is an easy 10 out of 10. For what it is and the amount that it offers, this game is near perfect. I hope that instead you can hang around and hear why we think it is a 10 out of 10. And if you can, then snuggle up around the campfire, crack open a bottle of whalebone spiced, and let's review Baldur's Gate 3. Before the review begins, just a small bit of self-promoting. Holly and I completed this game live over at twitch.tv/TonyLTgrex, and all of the footage that you're about to see will be from those streams. They're also uploaded on our YouTube channel, and you'll see a playlist tagged in the video right now. If you like this review and want to see others like it, or simply want to hang out with us, please check out our socials, which will be listed in the description. Moving forward, we also intend on reviewing every game that we complete on our Twitch, regardless of when that game came out. Thanks for stopping by, and enjoy. Alrighty, to start things off, I think it's best to contextualize why we ended up loving this game so much. And to do that, I feel it's best to talk a little bit about my favorite game of all time, Mass Effect 2. ME2 provided a younger me with an RPG experience that I hadn't really had up to that point, and really haven't experienced since, until now that is. The main plot revolves around Shepard, the character played representative of all mankind, journeying across the universe in a race against the clock in order to assemble a crew crazy enough to journey with him or her straight into the enemy's stronghold and give all known life a chance at surviving annihilation. This mission was expected to be a one-way trip. And while the premise sounds really cool, and it totally is, it's how the game unfolds and the team that you put together that allowed this game to stand shoulders above the other game in its trilogy, and most RPGs. As Shepard gathers members for his missions, they are able to meet and recruit some of the most iconic beings in known space, and not all of them are good. However, this is where BioWare, the creators of Mass Effect, known for some of the craziest and best storytelling in video games, took a pretty big risk that really doesn't seem so crazy today and is child's play compared to Baldur's Gate 3 and what they do. But you could recruit members, and once you had a completed team, maybe like 5 to 10 hours or so into the game, you could go straight to the last mission. Of course, this would more than likely ensure that that one-way trip held true. However, alternatively, you could spend time with your crew. You could learn their strengths and weaknesses, you could earn their trust, and you could not only succeed in giving all life a chance against the impending doom, you could all walk out unscathed. And all of this was dependent on your decisions as a leader. And this is the key aspect which separated this game from me. An aspect that Larian Studios, the creators of Baldur's Gate 3, take and expand upon with the use of the D&D universe. Both games present you with a challenge, the means to overcome it, as well as every opportunity along the way to have things fall apart based on the decisions that you make. Ultimately, the story is expanded upon by the cast of characters that you decide that you want to share your adventure with, and the game commits to allowing failure to be a part of that narrative, which is a huge win in our book. Alright, so with that comparison out of the way, let's talk about the meat and potatoes of Baldur's Gate 3, the story. Larian Studios took a lot of cues from my favorite game, and honestly, we couldn't be happier about it. While the reason for the extinction of all life is certainly different, our protagonist still serves as a leader to a ragtag team put together with the initial purpose of saving themselves, but that eventually expands into saving all of Baldur's Gate and beyond. Like Mass Effect 2, a lot of the spice of this game can easily be overlooked or ignored entirely. This can honestly be a huge turnoff for a lot of people, and that's quite easy to understand. There's so much content. It's almost unfair, not only the amount of content, but also how some characters or stories can be hidden away behind lots of reading, which we will cover in lore and world building, or by failing checks, which we'll cover in gameplay. However, the main story and the plot that drives it is worth the price of admission alone. From the seemingly futile attempts to solve your issue in Act 1, to learning about the battle raging amongst gods and demons and your role in it sprinkled throughout Act 2, to completing your toolbox in order to save Baldur's Gate in Act 3, you can skip every other story beat and still enjoy an enthralling 30 to 40 hour RPG campaign. A campaign that has the decisions you made throughout your run directly impact who is with you and who isn't in the end. Additionally, the way the dice rolls impacts your decisions, and you can reload a save and experience your last 10 minutes of gameplay in a completely new way. That being said, during our playthrough, we experienced enough characters, side quests, relationship building opportunities, and camp organization sessions to keep us busy for damn near 200 hours. And even after all that time, there are still so many parts of the story that we know we missed, or that we'd like to attempt to do again in a different way in another playthrough. And it's that replayability that really drives this home. Larian Studios listed some unimaginable number of outcomes for the game, as well as ways to complete the game even if you annihilate every NPC that you come across.
We didn't play safe. We said we'll take risks. We know they will probably find a way to break the game, but we have this system of rules that we have for ourselves that allows it to fall back in a way that you will always be able to finish it. And as a player, you'll know, hey, all this shit that's happening right now, that's me. I did that, right? So I mean, I'm okay with it. And that's actually also what you're seeing with players. There's players that follow the critical path and they're happy because they got a really polished story experience. And then there's the people that start killing the protagonists and antagonists instantly, and then are surprised that they can actually still continue playing, and that the story picks up and says, well, you did all this stuff, but like here's another protagonist for you to kill.
There's so much thought building and world processing in this game, it's unimaginable. Alright, so all this talk of dice rolls and D&D are probably the best segue that we can make into gameplay. Baldur's Gate 3 can be slightly confusing or intimidating if you're not familiar with CRPGs or having to follow some pretty specific rule sets. The game follows a turn-based combat mode that can take a bit of time to become familiar with, especially considering that spells and defenses are often impacted by invisible rolls. However, after learning the ins and outs and experimenting, you may find yourself mastering or cheesing battles like never before. On top of battling, conversing with others is the other huge gameplay component. Mass Effect 2 implemented a pretty safe good or bad option on most important dialogue choices. They were almost always the top option is good or the bottom option is bad. Sometimes they were even color-coded blue or red. Larian saw this call and just decided to go all in. Baldur's Gate 3 follows a rule set of the Dungeons & Dragons universe that we're not even going to pretend that we partially understand. And that's kind of what's great about it. If you can understand the basics, you can still play the game and enjoy some random outcomes. Not happy with how random those outcomes are just coming out to be? There are options that let you adjust that. But it is the rolling of the dice that makes building your team in this game seem like rocket science compared to Shepard's team. Instead of clear good and bad options, you sometimes need to carefully select options based on each character's personality. You really need to get to know your team pretty intimately at times.
Oh, this is so exciting!
You really know me, don't you? It's wild. In so many ways, we barely know each other. But where it counts, you're deeper in my head than that tadpole.
And even then, one bad roll of the die can lead you to failing a check and not actually getting the outcome that you worked so hard for. It's madness, it's chaotic, it's great. There are a lot of aspects about the gameplay that can be equal parts frustrating and rewarding. Just make sure that you pick a difficulty and adjust the options in a way that makes you happy. Ultimately, the story is expanded upon by the cast of characters that you decide to share your adventure with, and the game commits to allowing failure to be a part of that narrative. Just a quick note on performance. We did play this game on the PS5 and did end up seeing some longer loading times, especially towards the end of Act 3, as well as this weird notice that popped up every time we loaded a save stating that we had some corrupted save file. Some fights also saw certain friends or foes having their turn skipped from the game loading for so long that it ended up bypassing their turn to solve the problem. Didn't really impact the game too much, but it was a small issue. That being said, the sets are absolutely beautiful and rendered extremely well given the absurdly high number of areas that you'll be able to explore throughout the game. Alright, so lastly, let's talk about our favorite topic here on the channel, lore and world building. While the world takes place in the wider and way more complex world of Dungeons & Dragons, the game does a pretty good job of letting the player decide how much or how little they care to enthrall themselves within the world. There are a plethora of books, notes, and scrolls that are scattered throughout everything in the world. Chests, bookshelves, on dead bodies, everywhere. These readings are actually a great length, somewhere between a page for the majority of readings, 2 pages for an acceptable amount, and there are a select few 3-page readings. They fill in some of the blanks of the world and the characters. They also explore the relationships of the gods and demons, which can help with the storylines of some of the side characters. Even basic side quests can be easily circumvented by reading specific items. What's great is that even if you don't sit and read the books, simply opening the item will count towards quest progression, and the narrator can even step in periodically to inform you of the SparkNotes version about what you've read if you pass a certain check. Also, most readings repopulate throughout the worlds from chapter to chapter, which makes it extremely convenient and easy not to miss something super important. But every conversation matters. Every reading had meaning, from the exploration of Baldur's Gate's haunts to the mysteries of the miniature giant space hamster. All these components add to the incredible immersion that makes every corner of this world worth exploring. So there's a lot of praise that could and should be thrown at this game, and it'll only get better from here with planned updates and rumored expansions. If you can overcome the daunting and expansive opening and are willing to do just a little bit of work in order to get to one of the greatest RPGs ever, then you will more than likely enjoy this game as much as we did. And try Mass Effect 2 at some point. But anyways, that's it for this Ash review. Hope you enjoyed our second go at this. If you did enjoy it, please do all the YouTube stuff in order to check out our other reviews. We got some weird snacks and a man who's been down in the dark for too long coming up next. We hope to see y'all then. Be safe.